Hello, welcome back to Elise Reads and Speaks. Today I am bringing you my mid-March wrap-up. I am still reading like crazy, so I figured it would just be easier to divide these into a mid-month and then an end-of-the-month wrap-up. Okay, so starting off the month of March, I started off pretty strong. I read One to Watch by Kate Stayman-London, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Okay, first off, big Bachelor fan. Big Bachelor fan. I mean, I have done a video where I'm recommending books to Bachelor contestants. Clearly I'm a part of Bachelor Nation. So if you're not familiar with this one is a spin on The Bachelor with some plus size representation. I thought that was super cool. Now, I'm not somebody in need of this representation, so I can't speak for how realistic it is. I don't know what those internal feelings are, but as an outsider looking in, I found it completely realistic. I know that a lot of the reviews were saying that, she was supposed to be this strong woman that not so much didn't care about her size, but was proud of it, and they didn't like that a lot of the time she seemed very insecure. Now, as an avid watcher of The Bachelor, I just have to say that I found that part realistic because it doesn't matter how confident you are in yourself. You see every single lead go through this every single season, that they're second guessing themselves, they're second guessing why people are there, if they're really there for them, if they're just there to be on TV. So I found that realistic regardless of body type. Now, I will say that I read the physical book and I liked this presentation. I think I would have got more reading this physically than I would have if I listened to the audiobook. And that's because there's some different things in here, like news articles, interviews, some text messages, like group texting between friends that watch the show together. And I just like the mixed media presentation. Like I felt like it really added something to the book. Oh man, I love this. I love this so much. This is one of those that I feel like I will just pick up many times in the future when I need a feel-good read. Next, I listened to the audiobook of The 2 Lives of Lydia Byrne. This one is by Josie Silver. Now, this one was really interesting. So I have heard it referred to as chick lit, which, I mean, like, yeah, it is. It's for chicks. Okay, but I also like the grittiness of the story here. So the premise is that this girl just lost her fiance, all right? Like, they were getting ready to get married, and an accident happened, and unfortunately, he died. So there are 2 worlds, like when she's awake and when she goes to sleep. When she's awake, he doesn't exist, it's the aftermath of him passing, and we see how she's dealing with her grief through that. When she goes to sleep, he all of a sudden exists, and it's like she's in a mirror world of what would have happened if he had lived. Okay, so it takes place like her asleep and then her awake, and she's also going into these awake sections of the book having just been with him that night. Like, does that make sense? So it really is like she's living in 2 mirror worlds. So the reason that I like this so much is that I really like the dealing with grief. I think it's completely realistic to want to be with somebody that you have lost, to the fact that you're imagining this other world, this what could have happened world. And in this one, it was a bit of magical realism. It wasn't such a what could have happened world, but it was like a medication that she was taking that kind of plummeted her into this world while she was asleep. I like that she kind of came to grips with her grief and had to decide what was best for her and how best to move forward. I really liked that. I ended up giving this one 4 stars because it made me think about, how would I deal with somebody I love dying and having to move on? I mean, I think I'd want to stay asleep forever too if I got to see them too. And having to like pull yourself out of that and go on with the life that you're actually supposed to be living. I felt like it had a lot of things to say about grief, so I really enjoyed this one. Then I listened to the audiobook of Jane Anonymous by Laurie, Faria, Stolarz. Now this one was super interesting. This girl gets taken. She gets kidnapped. She's aware that she's being kidnapped. I mean, she even calls her parents while she's in the trunk of this guy's car, and she just vanishes for 7 months because she was kept captive by this guy. So this whole story is told between like flashbacks to this time where she was taken and also 7 months later where she escaped, and she's trying to come to grips with what happened to her, with her family, with her friends, like in real time. And there is a twist that happens. I could see the twist coming, but also I felt like that was the point. Like I felt like the outsiders reading this story were supposed to guess what was happening, and she couldn't see it. This Jane Anonymous could not see it because of what she had been through. I think that was the point. I think that was the point. Okay, so I enjoy the story because it's about escape. It's about this strong girl trying to get on with her life after she's been through something traumatic. It's about her family relationships, her friend relationships afterwards, and like how it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, you know, that you're feeling something for the captor. You know, you don't intend to have feelings for them, but you do because that's where you've been for 7 months, you know? I really liked this, and I don't want to say a lot because I feel like it will give a lot of the story away, but I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Then I went on to the sequel. So it's not so much a sequel as it is a companion novel. So this one is called The Last Secret That You'll Ever Keep. This is one of the arcs that I had for March. Now, it's not Jane Anonymous's story. The premise is that this girl in this story logs on to this website that Jane Anonymous had started. So the Jane Anonymous that we had met in the first book started this website, this discussion board, chat room for people that had been through similar things, whether they'd been kidnapped or just through something traumatic, and they found other people that they could use to kind of like encourage them, bolster them up, and just to talk to people that have been through the same things. So this girl in this one, she was taken, but the difference between this girl's story and the first girl's story in Jane Anonymous is that nobody believes her. Like, they believed her at first, and then they couldn't find evidence, and she was only gone, I believe, for 4 days. And it was like she was saying that she was in this well, and they couldn't find any evidence of a well being anywhere near her. And if that happened, you know, how did she get out? How did she get all the way back to her home without anybody ever coming across this? Like, I guess it's just easier to believe that somebody is lying than having something so traumatic happen. You know, you're looking for the fallacy instead of the hard explanation, which, I mean, like, I get. And because she wasn't believed, she started questioning herself, so she became an unreliable narrator. Now, I will tell you, I don't like that trope in books. I mean, I've tried a couple, it's just not for me. I know some people love that trope. I just don't. Like, I want the facts, and I want them to be real, and I want to know what's happening. And when you have an unreliable narrator, I feel like I'm questioning everything. And I know that's why people thrive on it, but I don't. I just don't. I don't like it. So the reason that I didn't like this one specifically is because it was questioning even the smallest things. Like, not so much the thing that she had been through in the well, but like her walking into another room, and then it would be in parentheses like, how did I get here? When did I do that? And it was like, what? It was too much. It was like the little details of her like picking up a spoon. Like, what? I don't remember doing that. I'm like, oh my God, like, stop it. Just stop it. Okay, so by the time that I got to the end, I felt like it was just getting so far-fetched, and the reason that this person had done this to her just seemed really stupid. And I was really disappointed because I really liked the first one, Jane Anonymous. But this one, The Last Secret You'll Ever Keep, I ended up giving 2 stars because I was just really disappointed and I was really confused. And by the time I got to the end, I was like, thank God that's over. Then I read another arc that I had from NetGalley. This one is called The Girls Are All So Nice Here by Laurie Elizabeth Flynn. Now this one was fun. These 2 girls are going to a college reunion, and they start getting messages in the mail. So it's kind of like a I know what you did last summer kind of thing. Like, they want to get back to them for what they did 10 years ago at college. So I was like, oh, okay, what's happening? Like, what did they do 10 years ago? You know, it's kind of fun. But then it ended up not being so much fun because, like, the thing that happened, I was like, oh, this did not go in a direction that I wanted it to. So, like, this main girl, one of the main girls in this story, she had the hots for her roommate's boyfriend in college. She met him, she felt like they were meant to be, and she just decided that she was gonna take him. So it was like this whole experience of her being this terrible person and like trying to make her roommate think that her roommate was crazy and that she was going off the deep end because she just wanted to be with the roommate's boyfriend. I don't know, I was expecting a little something more, and this girl just really sucked that I was like, oh, this was just not the way that I wanted this to go. I felt like it had so much potential and it fell kind of flat. However, it did keep me reading. I did want to know what happened next, and I was surprised by a couple things in there. So I ended up giving 3 stars. It just didn't pack the punch that I wanted, so I couldn't give it higher than 3 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook of The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This one really took me by surprise. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. So if you're not familiar, this one is a retelling of Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. And it's like a Southern Charm kind of retelling of Jane Eyre, okay, where I know her name in the original book is Bertha, and this one she doesn't go by Bertha, she goes by Bee. And Bee and Blanche have this business, okay, this like Southern Charm business. I forget what it's called. Like, think of like Simply Southern if you're familiar with that. That's what I got from here. All right, so, you know, something happens on a boat, and there's a lot of suspicions being thrown around where Blanche and Bee both die on this boat. But you know, you're familiar with the original Jane Eyre story, so you know that that's not exactly what happened. But because it's in a completely different setting than Jane Eyre, you're still not sure what exactly happened. But the traditional things do happen, like Jane meeting Rochester, Eddie in this book, and them falling in love and trying to start a life together while this dark cloud is kind of over his head and she's not completely sure what this background story is. So I liked this book because it took the story in a different direction. I felt like it even changed the personality of Jane to somebody that I wasn't crazy about. And she wasn't this like plain Jane that's in Jane Eyre. Like, she had layers. She had a background story that was kind of sketchy, so you weren't sure if you should be rooting for her. And also it was like you were back and forth on Eddie. You're like, you know, I remember the original story from Jane Eyre, so he's got to have the wife in the attic. But something else is going on here. And there were other things going on here. I just felt like it breathed some new life into this story. Like, this is the type of retelling that I want to read, where it keeps the main things from the original story, but it really puts a twist on the rest and it makes you excited to get to the end because you're still not exactly sure what's going to happen. I highly recommend this one. I think I would go back to this one in the future. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Damsel by Elana K. Arnold. This is one of my book club's picks for this year. I believe this is our May book, and I just happened to see that it was available on Overdrive, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna listen to it now and just remember it for May. And I am going to remember it for May because it's one that I keep thinking about. So this is another retelling, but it's not a retelling of like, you know, a well-known fairy tale or something like that. It's all the elements that go into the fairy tale. So like, the princess is in the tower guarded by the dragon, and the only way that she can get out is if a prince goes to save her, slays the dragon, you know, and as soon as he gets the princess, they lock eyes, they fall in love, the rest is history. So you know how we've heard that story all the time? It is a retelling of that general fairy tale type story, and it takes it in a very dark, twisty way. And this one has very polarizing reviews. I will say that I am in the camp that actually really liked it. Like I said, I keep thinking about it afterwards. There were some things in there that just keep my mind going. But I also understand why it's not a home run for a lot of people, especially if you're expecting one thing and you get another. And this is, it's dark. It's dark. So this princess that's taken from the tower does not remember any of her life pre-dragon. All she knows is when she came to in the prince's arm. That's the only thing she can remember. She's trying to remember her family, what she may have known, what she may have done before, and she keeps being told that that's not important. Her only role in life is to now be the princess to the prince. Now, this is where kind of like the patriarchal society comes in. So she's supposed to just do everything that's expected of her. She's supposed to be like the trophy wife, you know, and presenting as this fairy tale for other girls to want to emulate. And she is having a hard time with it. She doesn't want to be told how to act, how to serve her husband, how to be submissive in these ways that inside of her, she just doesn't feel like she's that person. She wants to be free. She wants to be her own person, but she's trying to be shoved into this mold of what this future queen is supposed to be. So I really liked that because I felt like it had a lot to say about the patriarchal society, about the roles that women are kind of like taught that they should play as they get older. I mean, some of that stuff still exists now. Like, you're supposed to be subservient to your husband. You're supposed to make him happy. Your only role in life is to bear children and take care of the home. You know, that still exists today. It does. Not for everyone, but it still exists. And I just felt like this lesson being told in this kind of story with the prince and the princess, it really made me think. And then there's a big little turn of events towards the end of the story that some people are gonna like, some people are not gonna like, and I understand. I was in the camp that liked it, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I keep thinking about it, so like maybe eventually I'll go back and give it 5 stars. I don't know. But I really, really enjoyed this one, but I'm gonna caution you, it is not for everyone. Then I listened to the audiobook of Grim Lovelies by Megan Shepherd. Oh boy, I did not like this at all. Didn't like it at all. I listened to the whole thing. I really tried to get into it, and I could tell the different characters and whatnot, but I didn't care. I didn't think any of the characters were likable. I thought the plot was a little confusing. Like, they live in this beastie type world that humans, I think they're called like the beautiful people or the pretties or something like that. They don't know that these beasties exist, and they're like racing against the clock to remain in their human form so they don't get turned back into beasts. Okay, it like kind of sounds like something I would be interested in, which is why I listened to it, which is why I read the book. I just didn't care, and I didn't like it. And I got to the end and I was like, I mean, like, I guess it's 2 stars, I guess. And then I was like, well, why would it be 2 stars? I didn't like anything. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like some of the plot twists. I thought the main love interest that this girl had, I thought he was very condescending. He got very jealous and possessive all the time. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And you have earned your 1 star. And next I read Mind Games by Shana Silver. This was my book club's pick for March. Now, this seems like my type of thing. These memories start going missing, all right, in this girl's head and in this guy's head that she was interested in. All of a sudden, they have lost their memories of each other. They don't remember meeting. And something is happening where somebody is going in and deleting their memories. They live in this world where like your memories can be uploaded to a hard drive, all right? It's called hive mind. And somebody is hijacking their memories and deleting them of each other. So clearly something is happening. Like, why are the memories being deleted, all right? Sounds totally like something I'd be into. And to a point, I did want to know what was happening to the memories. I wanted to know the reason behind it. I liked the bit of a sci-fi twist that happens in here towards the end. I'm not going to tell you what that is, just because I think it's a big reveal that I wasn't prepared for. And I liked that I wasn't prepared for it. So it does become sci-fi, just, you know, other than the memories and stuff. Like, there is a sci-fi kind of thing in here. The reason that I stuck with 3 stars instead of giving it higher was that I really had a problem with the character development. These characters were flat. They were just like one personality trait, and that was it throughout the entire book. And again, if you watch my channel for any amount of time, you will know that I'm an actor, so I need the character work. Like, I need character development. That's what pulls me into a story. And, you know, this main girl, she was the same throughout. She was hunting for the memories. All right, like, her mom sucked all the way through. She was kind of just that mom that was in charge of everything and didn't want her daughter to step a toe out of line. The best friend was just really obsessed with giving this main girl a makeover. Like, no kidding, a makeover. And that's what I mean. Like, they just kept the same the entire book, and it just frustrated me. I will talk about the things that I liked. Like, again, I like the memories. I thought that even the presentation of the book, so let me show you one of these colored pages that are in here. When they were able to get a hold of some of their memories that had been deleted, that all of a sudden happens on a black page, which I thought was super cool. The thing I will say is confusing, that I would read this physically instead of listening to the audiobook, is that these memories that they regained again that are in black, they're told backwards. So like, the dialogue happens backwards. I don't know how to... So for example, if the dialogue is, "Hi, how are you today?" and somebody says, "I'm fine, how are you?" What you'd be reading first is, "I'm fine, how are you?" And then the dialogue after that would be, "Hi, how are you today?" Does that make sense that it's backwards? Okay, so like, I felt like my brain had a hard time wrapping around that, but I do think it added a little something to the re-downloading of the memories. However, I think my mind would have gone crazy if I was listening to the audiobook. So just be prepared for that if you decide to pick this up. And again, it's not to say I didn't enjoy the story. I did. You know, this is my kind of jam. Memories deleting, and they're just kind of like figuring out like who's hijacking their brains on this hard drive. Like, that sounds fun. I was not a fan of the character work. And they mentioned stilettos a lot. Like, this girl's in high school. and her stilettos are mentioned all the time. Girlfriend is wearing stilettos to high school. And for that to be mentioned enough that it sticks out in my head, like that's just a weird thing to remember. All right, 3 stars, 3 stars. Next I read We Are Not Free by Traci Chee. I have been looking forward to this one for a while. It is about a group of kids that were put into internment camps, you know, kind of like concentration camps for Asian Americans at the time of World War II after Pearl Harbor was bombed. So it is a dark part of American history, but it's something that we need to acknowledge because it actually happened. So it's about all this Asian racist hate and how they're going through these camps and like how they're feeling. It's different people's stories in these camps. So I was excited for this because just the subject matter alone was something that I was interested in, haven't been exposed to it before, and I was hoping that it would be a great cohesive story for me to really understand what happened. So I will say to a point, like I did enjoy the different perspectives because I was getting a feeling of what happened in these camps. And some of these stories that this author wrote were based in truth, based on her family's or family friends' stories of the past. Liked that. The main problem I have with it is that there were like 15 points of view. I am not exaggerating. Like if it's not 15 points of view, then it's gonna be like 14. Like it was over 10 points of view that it was like, okay, this is a lot. Like when you have so many characters in a story, I just have trouble telling them apart. Like that's just a lot. That is a lot to follow, okay? That was a lot and I just couldn't take it in. And I noticed that some of the stories that I would be interested in, or at least some of the perspectives, didn't have an impact on the whole story. Like I wanted to hear from that person again and then they just kind of dropped off the face of the earth and I never heard from them again. And the ones that I would hear from again were the stories that I didn't care about. And I was like, this was just, it was not the cohesive beginning, middle, end story that I was looking for. And unfortunately, I got really bored. I was really confused. I like the overall message, but I think this is a case of an author's writing style not being for me, so I didn't enjoy it. I gave it 2 stars. I am gonna say, do not let that deter you from reading this book because this is definitely gonna be for some people. Like I think it got the Prince honor. So clearly a lot of people out there liked it. It just didn't happen to be for me personally. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. So this one is a YA take on Kendi's Stamped adult book. Okay, so he wrote an adult book, Stamped, and then Jason Reynolds collaborated with him to bring it down to the YA level. I loved this. Like, it's about racism, anti-racism, the difference between the two. Like, I learned even a new word of assimilation. Like, I learned things from this book, and it was really good. I listened to the audiobook, even though I have the ARC in my hand right now, and the audiobook totally sucked me in for the entire time. And it's a short audiobook too. I found it very informative, very educational. It brought new things to light that I hadn't thought of before, and I was totally into it. I gave it 4 stars, really liked it, and I hope that it's one of those books that really finds its way into high schools because I feel like it's just needed. It puts things in a very easy to understand light. Like sometimes I like things explained to me, like I'm a kindergartner. And not saying that this is dumbed down at all, but I felt like it was a nonfiction story that flowed seamlessly from beginning to end. Like it felt like I was reading like a cohesive narrative. Oh, this one was so good, so good. You have to try it. And the last one that I read in the month of March so far was Downworld by Rebecca Phelps. This is another e-arc that I had from NetGalley. It comes out on March 30th and I did not like it. I did not like it. So like I am into parallel dimensions. So the premise of this story is that this girl's brother dies. They move to this town and in this high school, specifically in a high school, in like the basement of the high school, there is this portal. And apparently there's like 2 portals of like today and yesterday, okay? And you can enter this portal and go into another parallel dimension where she's trying to find her brother and see if she could like take him from that world and bring him into this one because his body was never found and blah, blah, blah. All right, sounds great. Maybe not to you. But like, I like stuff like that. I like time travel. I like portal travel. I like parallel dimensions. I like kind of the convoluted stuff that happens. I think it's fun. This one was not fun. I felt like this was very confusing. Just there were no rules. There were no rules. And it wasn't just parallel dimensions either. There was like a train that goes to these other portals and you have to pay to take the train. And then the payment that you need to get off of the train, it's like, well, who came up with that? Like, how did you figure out that was the payment? Like, there were no rules. And the stuff, like the background story between some of the characters, like this girl's mom and her mom's friend and the mom's friend's husband, that the mom and the husband had a thing at some point. Like it was very, it was very confusing. It was all over the place. I did not like it at all. Like, this was a short book and it took me forever to get through because I just didn't want to pick it back up. But I have trouble DNFing things. I don't want to DNF. And especially if it's an advanced reader copy, I really want to do my due diligence and get to the end of the story and see if my opinion gets a little better. It didn't. I really hated this one. I gave it 1 star. Oh man, like, I mean, who wants to end on a 1 star? That's 2 1 stars that I've had in this month so far. But I did have the 5 star, which was one to watch. And I just want to show you something real quick. So I've noticed that a lot of these books that I've been holding up for this specific video are a book of the month. Listen, this right here is one of the major reasons I love book of the month. They're all the same size. Like, they're the same size. And I just happen to like this one. Like, for some reason, this size, this type of hardcover is just really easy for me to read. It is a pleasant size for me. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Book of the Month and you're wondering if you should try it out, I do have a link down below that I think you can get your first box for like $5 or something like that. It's not an affiliate link. It's just a, hey, you're this person's friend, give it a try. If you're a weirdo like me and you like your books being the same size, you might want to check it out. Just saying. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Elise Reads and Speaks. I will catch you next time, guys. Bye.